Welcome to the Dog Ate My Strategy Show. In the next 30 minutes, we will help you switch off, bring you entertainment, and chat to some specifically chosen guests who will help you realise that you are more capable than you'll ever know. In each episode, we offer practical ideas for reshaping your career, enhancing your skills, and building higher self-belief, whether you're stuck, coasting, or craving a new direction. This show helps you silence negativity and challenge your current mindset with a blend of inspiration, positivity, and fun moments. So get ready for real stories, real mindset shifts, and real change. And welcome to today's show. We've made it to episode 5, guys and girls.
Hooray!
Episode 5, can you believe it? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I don't need to prompt you next time I say something like that, but there you go. So on today's show, we have an absolutely fantastic guest and who's going to talk about something that happened to them and what they're passionate about now. And I can really relate to that. But today I'm going to start off with introducing the panel. So from Glastonbury, we have David Johnson.
Hi, guys.
From Bath, Emma Barker.
Hey, hey, hey.
And Paul, who's raving in Brighton.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent. So the team is with us today, and it's been quite a while, actually. I think it's been about 2 or 3 weeks since we've last spoken. But first of all, I'd like to thank people who've tuned in again. So thank you very much for doing that, and for new listeners as well. If you want to follow the show and never miss an episode, all you need to do is subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon Music. So let's just ask the team, what have they all been up to? So Emma, what have you been up to since last time we spoke?
I have been excitedly redecorating the house, getting out my power drill, covering myself in paint, and just doing general DIY duties, Gary.
Excellent. So are you the DIY person in the household then, Emma?
I am indeed. I think the year that my parents bought me a drill, they were in shock. They never thought they would ever buy their daughter a drill, but pleased to say I know how to use it.
I was just thinking, I was watching TV the other day and they had the flat pack championships where they had people doing flat packs. Some did it in 9 seconds. They were a female. They were amazing. So I'm thinking, Emma, maybe next year we could enter you in there, could maybe win a very big trophy as well.
Definitely. I know flat packing is a side hustle, so I should definitely put that on my to-do list.
Excellent. And so, David Johnson, you're always up to some mischief. So what have you been up to over the last couple of weeks?
Oh, some mischief. Well, I mean, this is really following the theme of DIY. As the sun comes out at this time of year, and you need to get out in the garden and get various things sorted out. Well, there was some stuff that needed sorted out fairly high up, so I got my ladder out, and it's a 3-section ladder, and I managed to get it vertical, and then put my arm through the rungs and lifted it. And I ended up feeling like as if I'd had a few pints of drink because I started wobbling all over the place. It reminded me I hadn't taken care of making sure my muscles were staying fit over the Christmas and Easter periods. It was quite a salutary lesson. I managed to get the job up, get high up there, but it did really remind me how we got not only look after our minds with some damn good CBD, etc., but also look after our bodies and definitely keep those muscles working through the quieter periods. As to like servicing a car when you're going on the journey, make sure you look after yourself as well.
Thank you to our new health correspondent, David Johnson. So what's been going on down in Brighton, Paul? I've seen some very worrying WhatsApp from you about something that happened recently.
Okay, so basically, I lost the internet at home for about a week. And my provider was, how can I put this, useless. Because they were sending me text messages probably 2 or 3 times a day going, we've spoken to Outreach. Am I allowed to mention companies? And they say it's all fixed now. And I said, well, the whole area's down, so I don't think that's worked. And so eventually I got the internet back on Thursday night at around 10:15 at night. Spoke to my provider over the weekend, who said, we're glad you got your service back. And I said, well, what about compensation? And they went, well, what happens is we will now decide whether you're entitled to compensation, and we will contact you in the next 30 days because we're allowed 30 days to calculate if you're even allowed compensation. So I sit here with not much optimism that I'm going to get much out of this, but the internet at the moment is back, but they haven't actually said what the problem was.
So how long were they out the internet for, Paul?
About 7 days. So it went down on the Friday afternoon and didn't come back until the Thursday night. So worked in the office all last week. And then the rest of my life, I tried to do off a mobile phone, which had varying degrees of success.
Paul, could you imagine what it'd be like in the whole of the UK if the internet went down for 7 days? I reckon it'd be worse than COVID. I reckon we'd have to have special counselling sessions for people. We'd have people wandering round the streets, not knowing what to do, tearing their hair out, and just looking as though the world had ended.
I think the bigger problem would be that everything's so tied up with the internet now. What with modern life as we know it would just grind to a halt.
Yeah, well, tip of the day from Paul Raven is start hiding some of your money under the bed again, because the digital world in which we live is a little prone to going wrong. So I don't know about you, I've had lots of politicians knocking at the door. Apologies to anybody listening outside the UK, especially in Vietnam. So for example, I had a reform guy who came, who was quite old, and he came and I thought, what's he going to wear? Guess what? He had a tweed jacket on. I thought he might be carrying a pint of lager, just saying, vote reform, here's a leaflet. And then I had a Liberal Democrat who came down with his dog. And so he came in, I gave his dog some water. He were a nice chap. I think the Labour person just put a leaflet in and ran away. That probably explains quite a lot. The Conservative guy came round, and all I remember is he gave me a real firm handshake. Like the type of business firm handshake. It says you can tell a lot by somebody's handshake. So I think he was saying, this is the handshake of trust, as he grasped my hands and squeezed my fingers. And I didn't get anything from the Greens. I was a bit concerned about that. But then one day I looked on the mat and there were a big green leaf, so I didn't know whether that were their brochure or it was just a leaf that had flown in onto the mat next to the door. But there you go. So politics aside, it's been a strange Sunday as well. So this is really weird what happened yesterday. So for my big birthday last year, somebody bought me this really nice cup and it had this metal thing that went round with a logo on. But it started to come away, probably with all them cups of coffee I have. So I thought, what I need to do is just glue it back on. I made the bad decision of going and getting some super glue. Now, when I've normally used super glue, it sticks nothing together. I've been putting it on and then just holding it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, putting more on, nothing. So I got this super glue liquid and I thought, right, I'm just going to squeeze it and put lots on this round metal logo that went round the cup, and I thought I'll put some on the cup. Well, this just spewed out this super glue. So I was trying to grab hold of the cup, put some on the cup, some went on the floor, and then the dog came. So I was trying to tell the dog not to go stand on the super glue on the floor. And then I realised that my hand was super glued to the handle of the cup now. And I went and my dog's jumping up at me, so I was trying to get him down, and then unfortunately my left hand got stuck to my dog. So his fur was stuck to my left hand, my right hand hold of the cup, and there was no one in the house, so I didn't know what to do. So all I could think about doing was trying to free up my right hand so I could actually cut the hair off the dog where my hand was glued to. So I had to smash the cup. And so I just had the handle still stuck to my hand, which I had enough flexibility then to go get some scissors and then unfree the dog from my other hand. Just another calm Sunday afternoon in the Cox household. I thought, the dog's got a little ball patch now and he keeps coming up to me asking for a treat for sympathy.
Listen, no wonder why he's eating your strategy.
So just be careful if you get super glue. I think this super glue quick solution, if you get that, you need to get proper astronaut suits on with gloves and just be careful. So there you go. So that's what I did yesterday.
And keep the dog out of reach.
Yeah. Well, the thing is now, every time I go to make a cup of tea, he just runs off. He's thinking, oh no, he's got the cup out. I'm going to get stuck to him. So thank you, panel. We're going to now bring on the special guest. So welcome to the Dog Ate My Strategy special guest spot, where we always talk honestly about moments at work that shape our confidence, our careers, and the way we show up in the room. Today's interview is built around a question that hits a little too close to home for a lot of us. Have you ever had the answer and stayed quiet in the room? Maybe you didn't want to take up space, or maybe you've learned quietly that it's safe to let someone else speak, or maybe you thought this time you weren't prepared enough. But staying silent has a cost, and in this next conversation, we're getting to practical insights about how to find your voice without turning to somebody you're not. So I'm going to be joined by Leena Dattani, a director-level commercial financial leader and global speaker who's so passionate about helping people become more visible, more influential, especially in high-stakes rooms. We'll talk about the moment she knew that she needed to change, how she showed up, what she tells herself when that voice starts to disappear again, and a few sentences that you can use this week. So welcome to the show, Leena Dattani.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to be here.
So it's great to have you on, Leena. So for our listeners, could you just give them an overview of your career and what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think you've started off with a lot of it. So I started my career in finance, and then decided to study SEMA. So when I first started my career, I started as a bookkeeper. I went into financial accounting, management accounting, but I've spent most of my career in commercial finance. And I really like that because I get to help shape decisions. I build models using data just to understand, what are the numbers saying? What does that tell us we should do? And I guess over time, I learned that it's not just about having the answer. It's also about being heard in the room, as you were saying. Currently, I'm working with an organisation that's private equity backed, and I'm helping them to build out their commercial models because they are expanding in managed services. So I look at pricing, profitability, and I help the leadership team actually use that information to make decisions. As you said, though, there's a lot of things I do outside of my normal day job because I'm really passionate about people finding their voices. So I do a lot of speaking about leadership, about confidence. I also, because I have such a passion in Excel, I do teach Excel outside of work. So on Saturday, I was in Hampshire delivering a dashboard class. I think that also speaks to confidence because a lot of people were saying to me, I do that at work, but I'm not sure I'd want to do it live. And that's one of the things that people say to me a lot at work. I'm on a call and someone will ask me a question. And I think, well, I don't know. I haven't got that answer, but I'm sharing my screen. I can start doing some live modelling and we can work it out together. And I think that also has helped with my confidence, being able to do that.
Excellent. So let's just go back a little bit. You're driven to helping people find their voice and become more visible. So what was the catalyst that started this then?
I wish I could say there was one thing. It wasn't, but there's probably one thing I remember the most. I had built this financial model. We were going through a large transformation plan at a company I was working for, and I built this model. I knew it inside out. And I went into a meeting. It was a full day board meeting. We had our external board members there. We had our C-suite, and I didn't say a word. And it was, when I think back, somebody else spoke to my model, and the person that knew that model best was me, but I didn't feel confident enough to say a thing. And I remember leaving that meeting thinking, this has got to change, because I was the most prepared person there. I knew it. I just didn't feel like I had the confidence to say anything.
And before you went into that meeting, Leena, did you have like a plan to speak and take people through this model that you'd worked so hard on?
Yeah, that hadn't been the first time I'd lacked confidence. So I always think that, but I would sit in the room, and when I'm sitting in that room, I would get this panic. So when my heart's beating, it almost felt like it had reached my neck. So I thought, if I say anything, it's not even going to come out correctly. because I sounded, my voice would have been all blurry. I would forget my words.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people do, and they go through the fight, the fear, or the face type thing, or the freeze. And I think once that takes over, it's really, really difficult. We spoke about this with Karen Dunbar a few episodes ago, where she says she surfs the wave of nerves. So she's saying, I know it's always going to happen, even though I do many performances, but I just have a way with dealing with it. But I suppose if you don't, and you're starting to think more about the outcome of what people are going to think, how they're going to react, you're sort of compounding it, and this physical feeling just doesn't go away, does it? It's just like, the heart rate going up, the sweating. It does have a massive impact on your body. So when that happened then, Leena, did you think, right, this is the last time I'm going to find out what's causing this to happen, and I'm going to take some action so that, I can present my work, which is going to help a lot of people?
Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, I can't say that I became confident overnight, but there's a few things that I did do. Going back to exactly what you've spoken about, I had to think. One of my mottos now is action first, confidence follows, because you do have to go through that repetition. So I can go back to my first talk and think, yeah, my voice did tremble a bit. My hands were shaking. And still now, I've been on stage with over 1,000 people. And do I shake a little bit? Yeah, but it doesn't last the entirety. And that's because I care. So I've learned to deal with it. And I think that is because action. When I give my confidence talks, I've spent a lot of time studying this, and it's your body protecting you to say, what are you doing? Are you going to be okay? And once you've done it once, your body's like, okay, you did it. And nothing bad happened. And you just keep doing that and your body will learn. It's like going to the gym. The first time I go to the gym, my body's thinking, hold on, this is hard. I don't want to do it. And you do it again and you're okay and you just learn. So that was one of my things. I did also get external help. I'm not going to lie. I had a confidence coach, and that changed my trajectory. And that's why I really went into coaching myself, because I could see the transformation it made. And I have little mottos I tell myself when I'm feeling that, when I have to notice my patterns. So the first thing was, what makes me this way? What am I scared of? And it's things like, I was overthinking everything. Is it too simple what I'm saying? What if I say it wrong? Are people going to think differently of me because I said something that made me seem, I don't know, less intelligent? What if they ask me a question I can't answer? Is it better to just say nothing at all and put myself in that situation? So I then had to learn all of these questions that were going through my head and say, right, so what if that happens? What if somebody asks me a question and I can't answer it? What if I say, I'll take that away? And when I worked it all through, I was thinking, actually, it's really not as bad as I'm making out. All of these things could happen, but the idea in my head of what might happen if that happens is probably not that bad.
So is it a lot of reframing the inner voice that goes, the inner voice that tells you all those things like, this might not go well, there's some important people in here, people might think that maybe you're not that intelligent, maybe you don't know about what you're talking about. So is it a case of reframing that voice to say, actually, I'm well prepared for this? Nobody's going to come on stage and attack me, nothing like that's going to happen. People aren't just going to walk out. There's not going to be a mass exodus.
Imagine.
People are not going to, yeah. Well, it has happened. I had a few people walk out there. But, it's looking at this sort of real pessimistic thing. And I think lots of people that we talk to and if you go around doing talks and you coach people, it's amazing how your mind, the way it works, it never goes back to those successes. It just goes back to, it ain't the worst picture. It doesn't say, you're brilliant at this, you're brilliant at Excel, Leena, you're brilliant at talking, you come across really nice, people can see you're very natural and authentic, but you never sort of think that voice is saying something else. So I think it's an important point that you make, is reframing, trying to bring proper perspective to it. So what happened then when you started to get your coaching and you started to get control and regulate some of those feelings? Did you start to know it's a change straight away in the way that you went to meetings and the way that you had the confidence to speak up?
I definitely made some changes about the way I went into meetings. So I would like almost psych myself up. I would go into the bathroom and like wave my arms around just because I needed to get a bit of an adrenaline rush. I would say to myself, you're going to say one thing as soon as you go in. And even if it was, hello, I'm Leena, nice to meet you, or what did you do this weekend? How was the weather? Because that got over my scared to speak, like my voice. So I thought, well, I need to just open up. I used to sometimes even prepare sentences. I would say, I think I'm going to make this point in this meeting. So the fact that I'd practiced that, I could say that, and it opened up for me to even be able to say more. What I really noticed though, when I started to speak, is that people started coming to me for my opinions, not just my ability to get things done. Really grew my confidence.
And I think that's because people just saw you as natural Leena. Because the trouble is, a lot of times you watch somebody and you sort of think, that's the standard, maybe I should go into that mode. So it'd be no good me trying to present like, for example, David Johnson. It just wouldn't work. But if I present like Gary Cox, then people sort of see you naturally and you come across naturally, and it's like, yeah, I'd like to go have a chat with them. So was that happening a lot then, Leena, with this sort of new approach of you being more you? And I think really is covering some of the basics, is go in there a little bit prepared. There's nothing wrong with doing that, because again, it's small steps of confidence that'll get you to a point where you sort of can go onto autopilot. But I suppose it's that transition of getting there so it becomes inbuilt.
Yeah, I think authenticity is key. Looking at somebody else and saying, I love what you do is great, but you can't copy them. I can't tell the same joke as a famous comedian and it will be as funny. Like, you have to put your spin on it. So that definitely helps. And I'm always about being myself. I think, though, I did make a change in the way I present, because and I got some really good feedback. I think I'm very fortunate that I've surrounded myself with some great people that are very honest with me. And a lot of the times when I spoke, I made myself quite small in my body language, in my words. So I would hunch my shoulders. I would look down because I think, let's just get this over and done with. I would speak very fast. I would often open sentences with things like, this may not matter to you, or this may not be relevant. And therefore, you're not going to hear me in the way I want to be heard, because I've already dismissed myself before I even started. And I don't use language like that anymore. I will come in with my point. I might say, sorry to interrupt, or actually, I probably wouldn't say sorry to interrupt. I'd say building on that to make my point across. And so I did change my language because I realized that my language was making me small.
So, Leena, I suppose we have a lot of listeners that probably go through this. I mean, I've been through this before, and they might have trouble in certain meetings or just in general. So what would be one or two good practical steps then that could take this week so that they could, find that voice and not take silence as a strategy, but really contribute that meeting? What could they do?
Lots of things. I would say record yourself and listen to how you speak, because when I said I changed my words not for just those listening to me, but for me listening to myself. It made me more confident when I spoke with different words. So I won't say things like, I got lucky. I didn't get lucky at work. I worked really hard and I'm really good at what I do. And I embrace that now. So I'd say record yourself, surround yourself with people that can be honest with you. If I didn't get that feedback to say, actually, Leena, the way you delivered your message in that meeting was you shrunk. And I need people to be able to say that. I also have a boss previously who I spoke to and I said, I just don't feel confident in meetings. And he was lovely in terms of, he would say in a meeting, oh, Leena and I caught up yesterday and she mentioned, so he'd almost create an opening for me. And that made me feel like, well, I've got his approval, so I can now expand on this. And another thing, which I haven't really brought up on here, is culture. So I'm born and bred in England, but my culture comes from India and my parents are from Uganda. And the culture I was brought up in at home was all about being humble and, you work hard and you'll be seen. Whereas I found a lot in the workplace that's not necessarily the way. You have to talk about yourself to get that visibility. And so that was a mindset shift as well. And I think, so the more you can do to understand yourself, try and spot your patterns, then you can start working out, where do you want to be? And how can you change that? What's stopping you from getting there?
Excellent. I think that's some really good advice, especially the recording and knowing that you might be on autopilot using words that are a bit negative or what aren't representing you in the right way. Just another area to look at, Leena, then. So we talked about getting your voice. Also, there's also talks you do about becoming visible. But obviously become visible, that can be difficult for some people because it can be, right, I'm going to become visible. Do I have to sort of change character? Do I have to become something that I'm not? Because obviously, if you're very capable and you're in a culture where, let's say, there's more extroverts, it can be really, really difficult. So what advice would you give from your experience on somebody wanting to become more visible, but knowing that they don't have to, change the character, become some egotistical maniac overnight and just be themselves?
And that's the advice. Be yourself. I'm an introvert, and most people that meet me don't believe that, but I am. That doesn't mean I'm shy. That's very different. I'm very capable of talking in front of large audiences. I'm very good in one-to-one situations. I'm probably better in one-to-small situations, but I won't give up what's me, because then I feel like I'm acting. And when you're acting, everything becomes a performance and a show, and you're always on edge. So I would say initially surround yourself with people that you aspire to, or that you really think highly of, and surround yourself with people that will give you the right advice. I went to things like, I never did their course, but I went to Toastmaster sessions because I wanted to practice public speaking. And there's so many organizations out there that will allow you to do that.
Can we just talk about leadership then? So what do you think makes a really good leader then, Leena?
Being able to adapt without losing authenticity. I think that leadership is about the situation you're in and the people you're managing. So you don't have to say, well, this is my leadership style, because it needs to adapt with the person you're leading and where they're at in their stage and the decisions you have to make at that time. And one of the things I would say, like, I've spent a long time finding my voice, and I'm at a position where I really am happy with myself, but silence isn't a bad thing. Now that I found my voice, doesn't mean I use it all the time. There's times where I think actually silence is still the right play. And I will still go into a meeting and think, I just need to hear what everyone else has to say today.
So what do you think good leadership traits are then, from what you've seen and what you've developed yourself?
Adaptability while maintaining authenticity. I think the biggest leadership thing, what I've learned, is having a team that can be honest with me and being able to have that two-way conversation. They're experts in what they do. And sometimes I need to be told what they want rather than me guessing what they need. For instance, I might think actually that person wants a pay rise, where actually some people want recognition. They want progression. And I think we really need to sit down and look at what it is that somebody wants, and that makes a good leader. There are times I could say I'm autocratic at times because I need to make a decision now and it's of the essence. I've got a project go live tomorrow and I will choose that, but I would like to think that I've built enough respect with my team that they'll back me to do that. And there is times where I'd say, right, I want everyone's opinions because we're going to do this. We've got some time. Let's work everything through. And it's knowing what is right in that moment. And sometimes if you get it wrong, I would say make a decision quickly, or make a decision but be ready to change quickly if you've got it wrong. Don't be afraid to make that decision.
I think this is a good point. I think situational leadership comes up quite a lot. It's not one size fits all. It's not one situation. Sometimes you have to maybe take control, but do it in the right way, more in a coaching way. But sometimes it's just about empowering people as well. But the common thread is the connectivity, which you mentioned, Leena, is really connecting with people so that you can have honest conversations all the time. And then people know that when you're talking to them and you may be coming up with ideas or supporting them, that you're actually caring about the situation and you want them to succeed, instead of it being a personal thing. And I don't know whether the team have noticed that with certain leaders. You can tell ones who stand there and this is a good move for their career, it's a good move for their visibility, whereas there'll be some people where they want it to be a good move for everyone, so that everyone develops, everybody learns, and there's a good outcome. And there's a huge difference between those situations.
Yeah. And the industry sometimes dictates that as well.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think depending what functions you're working with as well, some functions can be hard. If you're working like you are with commercial functions, they want fast decisions, they want right decisions. Sometimes, they're not that interested in data. It's like, just tell me quick and tell me now.
If I go back to something you said earlier, you said something along the lines of people externally might say, Leena, you're really good at speaking, whereas I have this internal thing saying, but I could be better, or I'm not good at this. And we're always doing that. I think the flip side of something like that at work is you make a decision, it doesn't quite go to plan, but you think that's the decision I've made and you ride with it. And all you do is make that bad decision worse. And I think that's a great leader would say, right, I got it wrong, stop, pause, restart a different way, because that's the only way to do it. And that's something I've definitely learned.
What about people coming out with phrases like "be yourself at work," which always sound great? It's like, of course I'm myself, but then you go do all this psychology stuff and they go, there's a work mask, a home mask, there's probably an in the car mask and a dinner time mask. From your experience, what could help people who need to become more of themselves or feel the need to become more of themselves at work?
So I go back to action first, confidence will follow. So I would say if you're feeling like that today, think about one meeting, and I'm not sure when this is going to get aired. So let's say between this week and next week, think of one meeting that you're going to go to and decide in advance that what you're going to say, one thing. Practice it and don't think about 10 things, because I think then it can get overwhelming. So just one thing, one meeting, practice that, go to that meeting and say it and see how that makes you feel. And that will change how you hear yourself, how people start to see you, and more importantly, how you then see yourself.
Excellent advice. Do you think people should put a safety net there? Because it's like, and if you do this, it's not going to be the end of the world. In fact, it feels more like end of the world, Leena, when you don't actually say something and you keep repeating that conversation of, if only I'd have said this, and if I'd have said it like this, which is worse than saying, it's 2 minutes and I need to say this, and it's the right thing to say. And what will be the worst thing that happens? Well, the worst thing that happens is probably nothing. But if I don't say anything, I'm just going to be waking up at 3 a.m. thinking, why didn't you say that, Leena? That would have been a good thing to say. That might have resolved something.
Yeah, or someone else says it an hour later and you think, I've been holding it in my head and I could have said it an hour ago. But I think when I used to go back and analyse my meeting and I thought, what if I said that? What if I was wrong? That was my worst case scenario. I was wrong and people didn't think I was intelligent. First of all, the likelihood of that happening is small because I got employed to do that job. So, if you think about it realistically, someone thinking I'm not intelligent was an unlikely scenario. What if I got it wrong? Now, maybe that could happen, but so what? What really was going to happen? Like, how did that stop me from speaking? Because actually asking a question and having it wrong meant that it would increase my understanding. There's something I wasn't understanding. So I think you're right. You have to go through them all and think, and then what? And when you get to the end of that, you're like, is that it? I can deal with that. It's actually not so bad.
Yeah. So it reminds me, actually, listening to you talk about that. I have a saying, because I used to struggle a little bit. I remember going to my first big meeting, and it were in France. And I got there really, really late, and there were the group chairman there, and there were a dinner table, and I'm thinking, I've got there late, that in the group chair, oh yeah, it is, I'm going to have to sit next to him. So I sat next to him, and he says, where'd you come from? And I says, come straight from the airport. I literally thinking, please don't say anything to me. Please don't say anything to me. I started to, like you, come up with a few ideas. And then I had this phrase. So I learned a phrase that really helps me, which is your past is your proof.
Yeah, love it.
Because when you go back, and I do little exercises, I do them for some of the SEMA work, is on positive reflections, is your past is your proof. You can go back to any time, and it can be not in the workplace, it could be something outside that, but there'll be times when you've had to really come through something difficult, and you thought you couldn't do it and there was some discomfort, but you get there. But you forget about what you actually did, how you actually started to take control, how you realised you had more control and influence than you ever thought. And there's lots of situations scattered through your life, not just at work. And so I tend to think about when I've been in some tricky situations and I've been floundering a little bit and questioning myself is, look, just go back to your past. Find the proof in your past that you can do this.
I love that.
So is there anything else that you want to add to this? Any other words of wisdom to the listeners today?
I guess if I have to end on one thing, I would say, please just don't wait for that perfect moment, because it doesn't actually exist. So speak before you feel ready and you'll get there.
Excellent. So how do people get in touch with you, Leena?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So Leena Dattani, that's Dattani. I'd love to connect with anyone. If you've got any questions, please send them through to me. I really like that community, and I like hearing other people's views and opinions and what they've been through.
So you went through quite a lot there. I did a lot of talking. So I want to hear from our team, from Emma, Paul and David, some sort of insights and takeaways that you gleaned from some of the in-depth stuff that we spoke about there with Leena.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Leena. I absolutely loved you sharing your story. That was fantastic. I think I'm certainly someone who just faces my fear and does it anyway and tries not overthinking at all. I did have one question which hopefully you can expand on. Obviously, in today's digitalization, a lot of our communications is over Teams, is over various different mechanisms. And obviously, when you're face to face with somebody, you can read their body language. What would your advice be for someone who is lacking in confidence, but is maybe in the digital world more so than facing another person?
That's a very good question, because I think there's pros and cons to both. So you're right. When I'm in person, I like smaller groups because of the body language. I can really read people and I think, oh, that didn't go down so well, or they're really liking that bit, so you can change. But often in person, I find it quite difficult as well, because you're not sure when to jump in. You're not sure when it's your time to speak because somebody else takes that spot. Whereas Teams makes it really good for me, because I put my hand up, I get a number next to my hand, and I know when it's my turn to speak. And I think so that in some instances, Teams is actually quite good. It gives me time to prepare, and I know I'm going to get given a space to speak. So I'd say use that function. And I'm quite, when I'm chairing a Teams meeting, I do often say to people, could we just use the hand function? And it's not because I'm trying to be rigid, but I'm making sure that everybody has their chance to say their piece.
Definitely. I love it. And I've been several meetings and people just talk over each other and it's like, no. The hand function is fantastic. So use it, people. So thanks, Leena.
And with the numbers, I think it's so much better, because I remember in COVID, it was just hands and you had to try and memorize whose hand you saw first. But now you have hands with numbers.
Even better.
Exactly.
What about you, David?
Leena, a terrific story, terrific background. We've known each other for a little while, and it's great to hear it. One of the things that really stand out more often than not, and I think it's very early, one of the things you brought out, we can often be the keeper of our best kept secret, which is how good we are. And and it's being able to have the courage to step forward, because you wouldn't be in the room if they didn't want you in the room. So definitely show up. And you're talking through, do the preparation before, the mental preparation, and do the physical preparation to, in effect, get yourself physically ready. The exercise before, rather like a singer, making sure you do the voice exercises before you go on and do the performance. Absolutely essential. And your posture and your presentation. And by being there, if it's a Teams meeting, for goodness sake, turn your camera on so you are in the room.
Yeah.
And use the hand, because once you've done that, and remember, you wouldn't be there unless they wanted to hear from you, especially if it's you are the main protagonist of what the meeting's all about. So a huge amount of wealth of takeaways from this, Gary. Well done on really teasing this out because you've covered such a wide area there. This is one to listen to and listen to again, and there'll be so much depth from it. Great, thank you very much indeed, Leena, and Gary. Thanks for the incisive questioning.
Thank you,
you.
David.
Look,
One of the things I'd like to add, though, David, is like you say, we've known each other for years, and you may not want me to say this to everyone, but I'm going to say it anyway. One of my catapults is kind of, I keep saying it, but surrounding myself with people that believed in me. And David, I don't know if this conversation would mean as much to you as it did to me, but you asked me to do a webinar for you about maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. And that's the first time I'd been on a webinar. And I thought, well, if David thinks I can do it, I don't want to say no to him, because if I say no, I might lose the opportunity. And I tell you what, I said yes to that webinar. It got me invited to speak at a conference, which got me flown out to New York to speak at a conference. And none of that would have happened if I didn't do that one webinar. But I wouldn't have done that webinar if you hadn't have asked me to.
Well, Leena, thanks very much indeed. And quite frankly, you stood out, and because you did step forward, you somehow you stood out. Thank you for those kind words as well.
Paul, let's hear from Paul from Brighton.
Thank you for a great insight to your experiences. In my role, I have to do quite a few monthly meetings, and one that I seem to have a problem with is I present results, I present what's driving the results, and all I get from the leadership team of the department school I'm working for is complete silence. Now, I know finance is not their main forte. They got experiences in various different things, but how do you kind of get beyond that kind of complete silent reaction? How do you get engagement going? Are there any insights you can provide?
I spent a lot of my career working with non-finance people. So often when I say to people, I'm an accountant, they'll say, accountants are not people like orientated. And then I have to remind them that I'm CIMA qualified and I work in commercial finance. But I think building relationships is key. So I do try to figure out who I'm speaking to and what matters to them. So for me, if I'm in a meeting and nobody says much with what I'm presenting, I would reach out to them afterwards and say, did that help you? Because if it didn't, we need to change something. And if it did, what parts helped you? How did they help you? So I can start bringing that out. If I think they're confident, because I don't like to put people on the spot because I know how I would feel, I would maybe call them out on something to say, following on from our conversation, or how do you feel about that? Just to get them more involved. But I think that's key. It's about not just presenting data. It's about presenting data that helps you make decisions. So I need to know if that's working. If not, I need to change it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Some excellent questions there, and some great answers there, Leena. And I think it all fits together, doesn't it? It's a case of you need to skill yourself up. First of all, you need to have the confidence in yourself. And I love the small steps, action first, then confidence. I think that's brilliant. And then I think it's also, if you have a technical skill, is to, first of all, maybe see yourself as an educator. Like you were saying, it's like, what do they need to know? What could change things for them? But I think it's all the small details of talking to people outside meetings, building confidence up, building relationships. You can take lots of conversations outside those meetings and just have a bit of a chat, coffee chat with somebody, just to get to know them a little bit more. And then when you go into that meeting, you're faced with people that you have got a bit of a relationship with. You know, it's not like they're a panel with scoreboards all waiting to score you 9, 10, 1. It's like these are people that you've already had a chat with, found a little bit about their personalities, found a little bit about what they're doing and what could help, and sort of doing that match. But of course, the confidence is key in that. So I'd just like to thank everybody today, especially Leena. It's been a terrific show. It's really practical, this type of show, where people are probably listening to this going, yeah, I felt a bit like Leena. And Paul's question at the end is, yeah, I go present some, I'll go to a meeting and talk, and people seem to be, not responding in any way, shape or form. So I think there's some really good pieces of advice that you've come up with about building that confidence, Leena. So thank you very much for doing that. And thank you to the team as well for some really great questions at the end, and obviously nobody fell asleep through the interview, Leena. So always a good sign. Although David's screen's frozen, but I just realised that's how David looks on screen anyway, so it's still moving.
Really, we'd love to hear from you and any stories that you've got. And so if you can, please, will you send us your stories to dog8strategy@gmail.com. That's DOG8ESTRATEGY@gmail.com. Do write in. We'd love to hear from you, and make sure you subscribe to this so you can hear future podcasts.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, David. And thank you, Emma B. If you want to hear more from the Dog Ate My Strategy, then subscribe to us on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. Until we meet again in a few weeks' time, take care.